What is going on, everybody? It's Friday night. Welcome to week 7 and episode 7 of the Fantasy Cheat Sheet podcast. If you have caught this show before, welcome back to all of you who have seen us. If you're new to the show, though, what we do here, we count down the 10 things that you need to know heading into the games this Sunday. That could be a start. That could be a sit. It could be some great gambling advice from Evan or Mike. Not really for me, but those guys got you covered there. But as a reminder, we could be caught at Going for Two Live podcast network. We're a proud member there. You can find us at Going for Two Live on Twitter, or head on over to YouTube, subscribe for that Going for Two Live YouTube page there so you never miss us or any of the other great content at Going for Two Live. There are great podcasts all over the place all week on Going for Two Live, so don't miss any of them. I am your host, Jay Christensen. You can find me on Twitter at JAYC_DFF, and I am joined, as I always am, by my two co-hosts. First, you can find him at Drop the Mic FF. We have Mike Hicks. What's going on tonight, Mike?
What's going on, guys? I'm just ready for the show and to get the rest of week 7 rolling this week.
Yeah, let's get this week 7 rolling and preferably over with, I guess, but we'll get into that.
We'll get into that later.
Our other co-host joining me and Mike tonight is Evan Ritter. You can find him on Twitter at EV_RITT3. How's it going, Evan?
How's it going, guys? As always, happy to be here. And yeah, man, let's just get rolling so we can get through this week 7 because I think I speak for everyone when I say injuries, bye week. Oh man, we're just hurting for players and hurting to even field a roster at this point. So yeah, let's just hopefully we can get out of this week alive.
Yeah, they're calling it the Bye-pocalypse, the Bye-mageddon, all sorts of great puns with the word bye in it. They're all great. I love them all. I like Bye-mageddon and Bye-pocalypse the best. The other ones probably aren't that good, but I've seen rosters this week. People have showed them to me where they have 5 players. I do a league. Evan, you're in it. The charity league where we do best ball, 20 team rosters. Someone showed me tonight a roster. They have 5 players active this week between injuries and buys.
Unreal.
So that's, I mean, at least, you get a loss, but you're fine the rest of the year. But it's crazy. This is a crazy week. Really great fantasy teams on bye. So it's going to be a tough one to survive. So we're going to maybe talking about some deeper players tonight that might help you out, or just, how are you going to survive this week? Maybe just gamble on this week and just, maybe you'll make some money there. But anyways, last night we didn't necessarily kick it off with the greatest Thursday night football game of all time. I believe I tweeted during this game, like, hey, I'll say it, guys. I'll be the one, even though you're all saying it. This game's bad. It's really bad. But, thankfully, it actually was pretty quick. A lot of running game in this game between the Denver Broncos and the Cleveland Browns. So it moved quickly, which was nice. But the Cleveland Browns win this game 17-14 in a game that actually they were really in control the whole time. Man, did they run the ball well. We'll get into that when I kick it to you guys. But Denver really, I don't know, they looked all sorts of out of shape there. Teddy Bridgewater didn't look healthy, didn't look right the whole game. Cleveland wins this one, even without Baker Mayfield playing, who missed the game with his kind of litany of injuries to his body. But Case Keenum was able to come in and lead the Browns to an important win for a team that's going to be in the playoff mix. But let me throw it to both of you guys, and we'll start with you, Evan. Give me some takeaways from this game, anything fantasy relevant. I think there are probably some nuggets from this game that were interesting, at least, even though the game wasn't the greatest of all time.
Yeah, no, the game definitely wasn't the greatest, but for me, I mean, and I think for everyone, I mean, just the performance from Dearness Johnson was unbelievable. I started him in a few spots, but obviously I wish I had started him everywhere because that is a great start to the week if you did pick him up and you actually started him, which I'm sure a lot of people probably did with the outlook of this fantasy week. But yeah, I mean, he played freaking lights out. He finished the day with 146 yards on the ground, touchdown. He caught both of his targets for 22 yards. I mean, he just looked freaking awesome. And then if you haven't heard about his journey up until this point, which a lot of people were talking about it, his journey to the NFL, it's just a freaking great story. So I highly recommend going and reading up on that. But yeah, great game from him, great performance. So, and just a hell of a moment in sports, man. I love seeing, stories like that. That's why I love this game. But yeah, then real quick, Javonte Williams. He didn't see many carries, but I think he still showed why he needs to be on the field. Kind of like we talked about last week. And I think moving forward, he's going to start seeing more and more work. He caught 6 balls on 7 targets for 32 yards and a touchdown. He just had 5 carries, but he still managed to average 5 yards a carry. And he ran the ball with strength. So yeah, for me, it was just really focusing on those 2 running backs from this game. But yeah, I think moving forward, I am all in on Javonte Williams.
I love Javonte Williams, so I'm totally with you there. I loved his involvement, especially in the passing game, which I knew he could do. It was nice to see it on display there. Mike, what do you get from this game? Any
All
other
right.
takeaway?
So I will start by saying Javonte is a capital man.
Even though he's 21.
21, but he is gonna be the man in Denver. But
Yes.
my takeaway with Denver is, and I'm gonna paraphrase, I'm gonna quote your brother, Jay. They're hot garbage dumpster fire.
Hot garbage.
This team, I mean, I'm not a Denver fan, being a KC fan, but they didn't even, watching the game last night, they didn't even look like they wanted to be on the field.
No.
Bridgewater looked like he was just going through the motions. You look over every once in a while, and Drew Lock is throwing the ball with his helmet on, and every single time I saw that, I was waiting for Vic Fangio to throw freaking Drew Lock out on the field. If they lose one more game, I say they need to throw Drew Lock on the field. They need to see what they have in them. This season is almost a wash and a bust for this team, partly because when you have the Chiefs, the Raiders, and the Chargers in this division this year, you're going to be in the bottom. You might as well see what you got. And Vic Fangio is officially on the hot seat. That's what I have to say about this game.
He definitely is. That was one of my first thoughts. I'm like, this team doesn't make the playoffs. Yeah, I could certainly see them firing Vic Fangio. It doesn't seem there to be any offensive creativity at all going on there. And that could be a product of the fact that you have Teddy Bridgewater as your quarterback. That is Teddy. I like Teddy. It's a good story with him, but I think he caps your offense. There's only so much Teddy can do, and he's clearly not right. He's limping around the field.
It's bad.
And and I don't know what else they can do. I think they missed out on taking one of these quarterbacks. They passed on Fields. They passed on Mac Jones. That could have been a mistake. I mean, I like Surtain. I mean, that's nice there. But
I love Surtain.
Their defense, like up front last night, got manhandled like every single play. Dearness Johnson played great, but that offensive line deserves a ton of kudos for just every play was push forward. That the Denver's front, whoever was in the front there was pushing back every play, and they were getting chunk plays. Every run with anybody that ran, even John Kelly was out there. He had some good runs.
Yeah,
some hype on him a few years ago when he was on the Rams. You were right. It didn't seem like they were ready to play, which tends to happen on these Thursday night games. There's a team that just comes out and they're just flat, nothing.
They look like they look like the Chargers in the sense that they look like the Chargers from last week that came out all the way East Coast at a 10 o'clock start from the West Coast and just looked flat as can be. But it was a Thursday night, so you shouldn't have done that.
It was actually the first favorite to finally cover in these primetime games. Before that, every underdog had covered.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And if it had got to over 3, if the Broncos had ended up getting 3 or more, then I would have backed them. But the fact that it was
2, right?
Yeah, the fact it was 2.5 some places, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna stay away. And luckily, I wish I'd have taken the under, but yeah. Could you imagine if Patrick Surtain and Trayvon Diggs ended up on the same field? Jesus, man.
Yeah, not bad.
Oh, wow.
And we wanted, that was our pick too. I mean, we still got a gem in Micah Parsons. Yeah, but Patrick Surtain and Trayvon Diggs would have been shut down, man.
Yeah, man. And Drew Lock, I mean, they don't have a lot there, so it's just interesting to see where that team goes if they continue their down climb. Like, I think we know where Cleveland, solid running team. I don't really have a lot of questions there besides health. Denver is weird because, like, you have Drew Lock, which obviously they have no faith in him. They didn't even bring him into that game. And then Teddy B, I'm not sure what they're going to get out of him. I think they're just a serious ceiling on that. So I don't know what they do next year. This quarterback class is like, there's some interesting guys, but not great ones next year. It's just they kind of got themselves in a situation here where they're gonna have to pray for like Aaron Rodgers or like Deshaun Watson somehow. And I don't know how it's gonna go for them. And
yes, sir.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Before we jump in, I don't know if this guy's showing off, but we got a guy in the comments here saying he's got a lineup of Matt Ryan, Chris Godwin, Allen Robinson, Kamara, Gesicki. That all sounds good. AJ Brown as well.
Jeez, yeah.
I'm glad you have health.
I don't know if you're going through the Bye-pocalypse, John. It seems like your roster's pretty good. I don't know. I mean,
AJ Brown got food poison, but
he's one of those. He's one of those teams that I'll talk about here in a little bit that needs to take advantage of getting to this point with a healthy roster and still some studs on his roster, and that he can actually field a significant stud team in week 7 and take advantage of it and trade.
I mean, he's probably playing with someone with 5 Bills players. And
go ahead and trade some of these desperate teams and start loading up for the upcoming weeks because you're obviously going to the playoffs. Yeah,
I would try to trade Matt Ryan or Burrow to a desperate team. You might get a piece there. But
you're obviously going to the playoffs.
He sounds pretty good, so I think he's good. But other people might not be good, so let's give him some cheats this week, some things that we noticed from around the league, just to give him some good insight on some guys we might want to play or avoid, or anything that we think is interesting this week. And we're going to kick it off with you, Evan. Give us the first cheat this week. What's your first topic?
Yeah, so this first topic will just show you that how everything is looking this week, and I'm going to talk about Devontae Freeman.
Like, what year is this? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't believe that he's a thing, like that we're actually talking about him. I personally think I should be talking about Tyson Williams in this spot, but since the Ravens team, they just only want to play running backs who are collecting Social Security at this point. Here we are. But seriously, all jokes aside, though, man. Freeman actually looked halfway decent last week against the Chargers. He ended the game 53 yards, a touchdown, just 9 carries. And the Ravens do go up against the Bengals this week. So it isn't necessarily a run defense you look to target this year. But like we said, this isn't any normal week. We know NFL teams are decimated with injuries, which obviously in turn translates to our fantasy rosters. Add in the Bye-pocalypse that we have here in week 7, and you have plenty of fantasy managers that don't have much of a choice but to start a player like Devontae Freeman, or any player for that matter that's going to see the field for a significant amount of time. And Freeman could see double-digit targets this week, double-digit touches this week, with Latavius Murray already being ruled out with a sprained ankle. So, yeah, I mean, it's not the sexiest of plays, that's for sure. But I think you could do worse this week than a running back in a good Ravens offense who could touch the ball 10 plus times.
Yeah, what are your thoughts there, Mike? We got Baltimore coming in. Yep, this week they're rolling out Le'Veon Bell, Devontae Freeman, all the greats. They're playing all the hits on the, they're playing classic rock.
Yeah, they're playing the hits. They're playing the hits from the early 2000s, and I agree with Evan. When it comes to this week, you just got to roll who you can roll, and I would trust Devontae Freeman more than certain guys. I mean, I'm still starting in one league, Jerick McKinnon from my Chiefs, and I'd rather have Devontae Freeman any day over that. So I think he will have a decent game, especially now that Latavius is out, and you got him and Bell. And like you said, Cincinnati's a decent team, but this is going to be we'll talk about this game later on more, but the running, all facets of this game is going to be interesting to watch for me.
Yeah, I'm starting Devontae Freeman and Scott Fishbowl, as a matter of fact. So, yeah, going to that well there. Last week, they each got 9, 9, and 8 carries between Murray, Freeman, and Bell. So,
but I think Freeman looked the best out of all those.
He did. From what I saw of that game, he was the one that actually looked decent. So I was like, and he could catch the ball a bit. So, and at the end of the day, that running game is good. It seems like as anybody they kind of can plug into that system, you have Lamar, who's such a threat. Like a running back can succeed there on a week-to-week basis. So I think Freeman's a good play this week. I'm going to it like on the team there. I thought he was a decent pickup if you were desperate, and everybody's desperate this week. So I like Freeman as a play, and he's the one I would choose there. It'll be interesting if they mix Williams in, if he's active for this game. He's had some inactives with Murray out. We'll see where he comes into play there. But at the worst, you might see a repeat of last week, which was still fine for Freeman. Obviously, kind of want to find the end zone, but, decent chance of that on that team. Not bad. So I like the Freeman play, so I'm totally cool with that. Let's move on to our second one, though. So we got Devontae Freeman as a lock. Here's another running back topic here. With you, Mike, do you have a running back you like this week or don't like? With your second topic of the week here.
I like, and it's not as deep as Evan, but when Bye-pocalypse comes or Bye-mageddon, some guys that would normally be a low end mid to low end 2 creep up. I have Josh Jacobs as my 9th rated running back this week. I mean, last week he had 16 rushes. He had more rushes last week than he had all year. He's only, played 4 games so far because he missed 2 by injury. But the biggest reason for me is the absence of John Gruden. I think it showed last week that John Gruden was handicapping this offense more. I think Olsen, the offensive coordinator, is finally able to have the free reins. I saw a quote saying that sometimes he wanted to run certain things and Gruden wouldn't let him. So obviously the new coaching staff is going to let the offensive coordinator do what he wants. I think last week was just a starting point. He had 16 rushes, 53 yards. He had a TD. He ended up the 19th running back. He had 15.2 points in PPR. Philly is ranked 20th against the run and 21st against passing running backs. I honestly think him and Drake are both going to have decent weeks, especially because of the shortage in running backs. But Josh Jacobs, to me, is a top 10 running back this week.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs is interesting because he is actually one of the few running backs that haven't scored under 10 points in PPR this year. He's actually just gotten over that each week. And his usage was really weird. One of I've talked about it on Brothers of Dynasty show that I do with my brothers. We were like, does Gruden unlock him a little bit? Just because they were like, under Gruden, they're like, we're not passing to Josh Jacobs at all. We're like, can that change? You see a new coach come in, even if it's just a head coach leaving, and they'll start to use players differently. So it was interesting. And he did have a little bit of targets last week. So it's just, if Josh Jacobs is used a little bit more effectively, can he be a buy low candidate? Is he a guy that you can start to play?
The one stat I want to add, Jay, that I forgot to mention, and the other reason I wanted to bring him up in general, they have a bye week after this week, but 5 out of their next 7 games, including this week, are against running defenses 20th or worst.
Yeah, and that, schedule play into it. If you can get, I don't mind, because especially where running backs going just in general with injuries and especially buys this week. Josh Jacobs starting to creep up in the radar of like a guy play. I'm playing him in the one league I have him in this week. I'm definitely playing him, so I'm on board with that. What about you, Evan? Kind of have to lock in Josh.
Yeah, I'm on board with Josh Jacobs. I was kind of liking him in the beginning of the year where you could get him in drafts because he fell. You know what I mean? He has struggled with efficiency so far this year. He's only averaging 3.2 yards, but he's negated that by finding the end zone time and time after again. He's the 3rd most in rushing touchdowns in the NFL, despite only playing in 4 games this year. And then Mike just alluded to the upcoming schedule after the bye, and we could see, not only him continue that touchdown rate, but his efficiency rate go up as well. This week, I am definitely playing him DFS. I'm getting him into lineups. He gets the Eagles defense. Mike alluded to, how bad they have been against the run as well. And for fantasy purposes, they allow the 7th most fantasy points to opposing running backs. So for me, I'm in the same boat. I think Josh Jacobs is a sure, fire low end RB1, high end RB2.
Yeah, we saw regular season Lenny, that's how you call him now, Leonard Fournette, tear up Philly last week. Yep. Good. So I think Jack Jacobs could do well this week. Just to get some of the comments here, my brother thrown in here reminding me I love McKinnon. I do not love Jerick McKinnon anymore. That is not true.
That
I'm
that
not
ship
on board anymore.
that ship
That
has
was
sailed.
That was a phase a couple of years ago, and I'm over it. Another one here related to running backs in the same vein as Josh Jacobs. We have his draft classmate there, Miles Sanders. Would you trade Miles Sanders for Chase Claypool?
Go ahead, accept.
You would trade him for Chase Claypool that fast? You would do that?
Yes.
Now, would you do? I mean, I think this is a little bit more interesting than a quick one in terms of running back shortage. Do you think there's a chance of Sanders rebounds, or do you think Sanders is a lost cause this year? Because that's kind of why I'm in between, because I think he's a decent buy low because I think they need to use him more. It's just, does Philly use Sanders enough where he's fantasy viable? Do you think he has any chance, Evan?
I've thought about this. This is actually something I've really been thinking about because he should be a buy low. He should be. They should use him more. But I just don't know that I have the faith in this head coach and Nick Sirianni to do that. So I'm just out on Miles Sanders, regardless of the running back shortage. I'd rather have, Darrell Williams right now because I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is in for it when he comes back from injury after how that guy looked last week. So, yeah, I'm just out on Miles Sanders. I am so in on Chase Claypool. I'll talk about him later. So, especially for this specific trade, that's why I would run and do it. It's because
do this regardless of format, dynasty or redraft. Do you do this either? Okay.
Yes.
Mike, you on board with that? Same thing?
I'm just going to keep it simple. I don't trust Nick Sirianni.
That's fair. That's definitely fair. It's just sort of like I feel like they need to use their running backs more. It doesn't necessarily have to be Sanders. It's just like there's too much. Last week was just so much on Hurts, where it was just kind of a disaster. So I think that offense needs to change. It's just do they actually do that? And I don't know. I do love Claypool, but he's been a little off too. But we'll see. I definitely like Claypool more. Running back's just so gross though. That would be the only way. Part where I would pause.
Yeah, you got to see the rest of his team too.
Yeah, that would help too. So, and I got a bunch of slander. Both of my brothers are on the chat now. So a phase of Jerick McKinnon, like when I had bangs in college, I did not have bangs. That was high school. All right. So
bangs and
actually incorrect there.
Bangs and Jinko jeans. Yeah.
J Love Stidham. Yeah, I did love Jared Stidham for a second there too. That was a phase. I'm sorry. Sorry about that one. Was wrong.
The brotherly love, man. I love it.
Lots of love for it. Bo Nix is a poor man. That is true.
That is very true. That is true, Josh.
Bo Nix is a poor man's Jared Stidham. So glad we cleared all that up and got that all out of the way. Let's get to my topic, though.
Yeah, come on.
Number 3 of the week here. I'm going to talk about the Patriots and the Jets game because we all want to talk about that game this weekend because these are 2 of the powerhouses of the league, Jets and Patriots, with everything on the line. And I want to focus on the running back position that we talked about before. And I have the guy I think I want to play this week, but I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a question when I get to the end of this. Michael Carter, I just wanted to run through here. He's starting to become a little bit intriguing, not necessarily from an efficiency standpoint, but he is starting to kind of take the lead there in that running back core on the Jets. If you look at his snap share, it's gone up basically every week. He started with 25% snap share week 1. He is all the way up to 51% snap share last time they played. So they had a bye week last week. Leader in carries basically from week 3 on, 10 plus points in 3 out of the last 4, including 14.8 points last time they played. And he's getting some targets too. He gets 3 targets a game, pretty much 3 of the last 4. And he's had a TD in each of the last 2. So this is a guy that was an interesting guy, 4th round draft pick, but a guy on a team that didn't really have a lead running back. They have Ty Johnson. They have Tevin Coleman. Not a whole lot there. And Michael Carter is a solid running back, a good guy kind of liked coming out in college, and a guy that I think they needed to get involved more. And last time they played New England, he actually looked pretty good. I watched that game. He actually averaged over 5 yards per carry in that game. So he's an interesting guy this week in this landscape of running back that if you have him or you were able to pick him up and redraft, depending on roster sizes and things like that, I think this is a guy you can plug into your lineup here and you get a good chance at 10 plus points just because of his involvement. If it continues the way it's been going, he's 10 plus is good. It's a little upside there too if they use him even more. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think he's a solid play this weekend. The other guy I kind of want to throw out there if you wanted to debate them is Randre Stevenson, another deep guy. We want to talk about deep plays this week because it's the Bye-pocalypse. Randre not involved extensively last week necessarily, but looked pretty good in the short sample size that he played. He had 5 carries last week, but 4.6 yards per carry in those carries. Also had 3 receptions for 39 yards. He had a touchdown, and the Jets are not good against the run. And this is in New England. This is a game that they could control. If they did anything like last time where they controlled the game the whole time, he could be involved. So he's another interesting guy to think about playing real deep, a little bit of a desperation play. But another interesting guy to have on your radar, these 2 running backs on each of these teams, if you have them on your roster, that you got to kind of think about playing them. So I'll throw it to you guys. Thoughts on these guys? And if you had both, is there any way you play Stevenson over Carter, or were you rolling Carter this week? And I'll throw it to you first, Mike.
I just want to preface by saying I love both these guys pre-draft. I wrote the rookie profile for Randre on Going for 2. If I had both of them, I'm playing Carter over Randre unless it's standard. If it's standard, I would think about rolling Randre because I think Randre could get the goal line. But I am definitely playing Carter in all formats this week. I'm actually playing him in 2 leagues this week, partly because I have to. But I do agree with you, Jay, where I feel comfortable that he could get in between 8 and 12, and 10 double digits is very likely. Or not very, but it's foreseeable.
Yeah, and he's done it 3 of 4, so it's not like it's out of the question there. Evan, what do you think these 2 guys and who you playing?
I would be playing Carter as well, but Rhamondre is interesting, especially if Damian Williams starts to or continues to have fumbling issues or ends up getting hurt again. We could see the Patriots kind of go to that LeGarrette Blount type role with Rhamondre. He's a big back. I could definitely see him start getting some more of the goal line work for sure. And it was interesting last week. He actually got the most targets for the running backs. Usually that's that's been Brandon Bolden's kind of role, but Rhamondre took over that role last week. I don't know if that's going to be the norm moving forward. But I don't know. I think it's definitely not something for the near future that's going to happen, but maybe a speculation ad. Go ahead and get him on your roster if you have that space, because moving forward, I think you could see him start to, eat into the role more and maybe take over eventually.
Yeah, for sure.
As far as Michael Carter goes, he's kind of just been, steady Eddie so far. He's not had like this blow up game at all, but like you said, he's seen double digit touches since week 1. He had in week 2 is when he had one of his best games, if not maybe his best game against the Patriots, was 13 rushes for 88 yards. So I think he's the clear cut number 1 in this offense. And while it's not the greatest of offenses, any running back that's going to see 10 plus, and I think eventually potentially could even see 15 plus touches moving forward is a running back that you want to have on your roster, because if he starts seeing 15 plus touches on a regular basis, even in that Jets offense, that's good enough for low end RB2.
Yeah, for sure. That is always the question, is that offense. That's a very, very interesting offense not interesting for fantasy points, but just can they string drives together and not turn the ball over? But yeah, Rhamondre, I think that's a good point. A guy you can add if you have space, because for a couple of reasons, if they get more faith in him, that's good, because Bill Belichick has to trust you. And Damian Harris.
Yeah, Damian Harris. I'm sorry too.
Banged up a little bit. He's also he's carried the load, and he's also a little beat up. So it's just a guy. I mean, look at all the running backs who are missing games. It's just a guy that I wouldn't expect him to necessarily start all the rest of the games with the workload he's had to take on. So, and yeah, you got to mix some guys into the passing game, and Rhamondre can kind of do that as long as he can kind of block and pass protection. But interesting guys there. 2 young guys, 2 rookies this year to keep an eye on going forward for sure. Let's throw it to number 4 here. What is our 4th topic of the week here? This is yours, Evan.
So this is kind of going back to Chase Claypool. And in general, I think this is also, with everything going on, injuries, buys, I also think this is a really good week to kind of target teams who either need a win, because there's a lot of them, who are just or who are just struggling to field a team in general. Because, if you are, like I said before, if you're one of those teams that lucked out, you're healthy, you're 5-1, you're 6-0, you have the complete upper hand in your league right now. So you can start looking towards, these upcoming weeks. You can start making long-term moves, especially taking advantage of those teams who are desperate. And, one of the guys on bye this week that I'm looking to buy low on is Chase Claypool. He's coming off that dud performance in week 6 against the Seahawks. His hamstring is not at 100%. But I think with him on bye and coming off that dud, it's the perfect opportunity for fantasy managers to scoop him up for cheap. Despite that 3.7 point performance against Seattle last week, I mean, he still saw 6 targets. I know he's going to continue to operate as the clear-cut number 2 receiver in that offense with upside. Some, weeks he'll have better weeks than Deontay Johnson. And he carries increased value with the Juju injury, who we know is out for the year. So, yeah, I think Claypool uses this bye to rest up, get back to full strength. And then when he comes back, I think obvious better days are ahead. And, if you can go ahead and get him for cheap, you just got a big time receiver on your roster for low. So, I'm looking to buy Claypool among some other guys, with this landscape this week.
Yeah, no, that's a good. You can use this to your advantage when teams. I mean, I've saw multiple trades this week just for. Some of them were specific to these guys that are, second running backs. Dearness Johnson, Darrell Williams, lots of movement on that. Or, Rashad Penny's, if you're gonna, speculate that maybe he plays, or Alex Collins last week. A lot of that you could do during the mid parts of the year here. And maybe you could string something together for someone, especially someone who's on a bye, not playing for a team and has been underperforming. It's a good target. Maybe Claypool. Claypool's just he still carries that. I feel like that name value might be hard, but yeah, try. Certainly a guy to look up because he's a guy who definitely could play better the rest of the year. Mike, your thoughts there on Chase Claypool?
Me and Evan agree this week. Bye. Especially with Juju right before the season started, I wrote a dynasty article about the wide receivers in Pittsburgh, all 3 of them. And Claypool is the one that I said I would want out of all 3. And with Juju being gone, that just exacerbates my opinion. The one thing I will say about trading right now in general, on top of what Evan has said, is most teams, you know what your team is now. You're either a contender, you're in that position. So it might not have to be a buy low, or there's certain guys on bye weeks, and I both asked you guys to trade in the chat, in the going for 2 chat. There was a team that has realized that they're on the bottom of one of my leagues. James Robinson was on bye. I didn't necessarily lead him this week because of bye, but I can use him for the stretch because I'm 6-0. So I went and pulled the trigger. So if there's guys like that are on bye and people aren't using, and they're down, 1-5 or whatever in dynasty leagues, and you can give them a decent pick or a decent haul for them, and it's going to help you win the championship. Sit on them for a week and do what you got to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And one more quick point is to this whole bye week with the injuries. If your team is just so depleted, don't go dropping guys that, are, guys that are injured that are coming back, or guys that are going to help you in the long run just to field a team this week and lose anyway. Sometimes depending on what your roster looks like, it may be better just to accept it and take the L and move on to week 8. You know what I mean? So
sure.
Yeah.
Don't drop Saquon Barkley or something like that.
I've seen people do it. They're just like, well, I don't know what to do. Let me just go ahead and get rid of this guy because I need to field a team. Like, just don't do that. Just
don't do that for any reason.
Take the L.
Let's get to number 5 here. Mike, we're going to you. Take it away.
All right. So I want to talk about Jalen Waddle, Mr. Jalen Waddle to me. He's had a really good year so far. He's 9th in catches, 15th in targets. He's 37 catches out of 50 targets. He has a 21.6 target share. He has 5 red zone targets. I didn't even realize this until my research, and this is one of the reasons when I was looking, I wanted to bring him into the discussion. 4 out of his 6 weeks, he's actually a top 36 wide receiver as a rookie. 3 top 24s, 2 top 12s, and a top 5. I didn't think of that because with Tua being out, I thought his numbers had decreased a little bit, but he's actually being consistent for a rookie that he is. He has a 74% catch rate. He's running 71% in the slot, which I like because he can get matched up, on slants and outs and use his speed. And the reason I bring his speed, he has 166 yards after the catch already. But the biggest reason I wanted to bring him up and what I'm curious about your guys' opinion is his ADOT with Brissett was 3.8. His ADOT with Tua on the field is 9.0. He has a 6-point ADOT average. But I personally believe with seeing that stat, I think with Tua, let's get rid of all the rumors about Watson. Tua is the quarterback in Miami. With Tua as the quarterback in Miami, I think this only shows significant upside for Waddle. I think he's going to be a mid-2 for the rest of the year, and I have him ranked at 17th for the week.
Yeah, it's definitely a good play this week. That Tua Waddle connection definitely seems to be something there.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously played in college. It definitely is something that, I don't know, seems to translate into significant target share for Mr. Waddle. Which the question was if he was your math teacher, so do you have some connection with him where you would call him Mr. Waddle? But I don't know.
The reason I'm
seems
high
like
on
you're
Waddle,
a little older than him, but I don't know.
I was higher on. I had Waddle as my number 2 rookie out of the rookie class. I had him higher than Javonte, and I caught a lot of flack for that. So for Waddle doing what he's doing, I appreciate it, Waddle.
Yeah, it's definitely targets are there. The ADOT is interesting. That's a good point to bring up the disparity there. I like that between Brissett and the who he's not going to go forward with playing with, and Tua, who may be his quarterback in the future. We'll see.
For now.
Evan, your thoughts here?
Yeah, my thought was exactly what you were just about to shed light on, was the average depth of target. I would like to see that up. It's only at 5.4 yards, this season. But if he's going to see that target share with Tua, I'm not shying away from Jalen Waddle by any means. And like you said, that chemistry and that connection definitely seems to be there. And I think moving forward, we're going to just, continue to see that. Tua is going to look for, Waddle, especially when you're catching 10 of 13 targets and, you're showing sure hands, even if the average depth of target isn't, as down the field as we would like. But I really like that connection. And especially this week against, an appealing matchup in the Falcons. He draws Richie Grant out of the slot, who, can be had. This Falcons defense, and especially their secondary, can be had as a whole. So I'm definitely in on Waddle this week, and I'm playing a lot of him on DraftKings as well at only 5,600. So I think he's a solid value on DraftKings. Both cash games, GPPs, just get you some Waddle in lineups, because at 5,600 he can pay that off tremendously.
Yeah, great there. And good point here. Future Washington football team quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. So, yeah, lock it in.
seen stranger things.
There was so much smoke there this week. I don't know if there's a fire, but there was an awful lot of smoke for false.
A lot of smoke.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to Tua, man.
I know. I don't know
No,
what's
it's
going
not.
on. We'll see when that gets sorted out one day. Um, whatever team these guys land on. But anyways, let's move on. And I got the next one, number 6 here. I want to talk about Arizona wide receivers that might be a little bit farther down the rankings this week. And I think they're all playable. And I'll tell you the reason why. Arizona wide receivers this year. If you could guess the difference between target share, the discrepancy, the variance between the lowest between Rondale Moore, Christian Kirk, and AJ Green and DeAndre Hopkins. What would you guess number between the highest and the lowest? So Hopkins to Moore.
DeAndre's around 20. I know
Yeah.
that. I'm guessing 11?
No, higher. The variance is only 4.
Wow.
15.6% Rondale, right around 16% to the 20% of DeAndre Hopkins. So these guys, in terms of target share this year, this is the average across all the games.
Yep.
You have Rondale Moore to DeAndre Hopkins with AJ Green and Christian Kirk in there, really all tightly packed in there. You have a solid stack of 4 receivers heavily involved week to week. Now, you got to hit the week right. It's not like they're all performing like that every single week. However, it's kind of hard to call which one's going to produce. Rondale is the one that gets the least, but they're incorporating him in different ways. He has the lowest snap share. He's only playing 42% of the snaps versus the other guys, but they will give him some carries. They get him involved in interesting ways. I mean, his ADOT's like 2 or under 2 because they give him the screen plays, but you want to see that involvement. That works for fantasy. Get that guy the ball. And then, honestly, AJ Green has been pretty underrated, kind of, for a guy who's supposed to be washed. He has been very involved this year. Had a good game last week. Just a guy, getting 17, almost 18% of the target share, playing 83% of the snaps this year. It's just, and that offense is good. So I want guys in this offense that are on the field that have the chance to catch the ball from Kyler Murray. Last week, it was funny that they all touched and out targeted DeAndre. DeAndre got 2 touchdowns. He only had 3 targets in that game. Had 3 catches, got in the end zone twice, but everybody else was more involved. So I like all 3 of the other options here, Green, Kirk, and Moore. If you have them on your team, I think you play them this week. Houston's a defense that's not necessarily great. Cornerbacks that can be had. So I think it's tough to pick which one. I mean, Kirk and Green are the ones I'd prefer just because I think they're going to be on the field more, but I think you could play Rondale more as well because of the creative ways that they can involve him. And DeAndre, you're always playing him, but interesting revenge game, DeAndre Hopkins versus Houston. So it could be a good game for him as well. We will see how that works out. So thoughts on that Arizona wide receivers? It seems like they can get them all involved. Is there a guy, if you had to choose between the other 3, is there a guy you would target over any of the others if you happen to have all 3, or if you're in DFS? Evan, I'll start with you.
Really, like you said, against this Houston team, I like them all. Especially, according to PFF, DeAndre has the 4th best matchup, an excellent matchup, graded at 86.5, going against all defenders of this Houston defense. So I think all of them are viable options, like you said. But I think in DFS, I'm going to be taking some shots at Christian Kirk. That would be my guy. He's been, kind of quietly consistent this year. I think this is definitely a matchup that I'm going to want to target in DFS. While DeAndre Hopkins is going to be obviously the most owned, I'm going to try to take my shots on Christian Kirk because I think he could catch. He could definitely find the end zone and have a good game against this Houston defense.
Right, Mike. Thoughts on Arizona's wide receiver core?
I will say personally, Christian Kirk is the biggest surprise to me in this lineup. I'm not saying that AJ Green's a surprise, is doing better than we thought, but I thought he still had I thought he had another year left. It was just being in the right system. I didn't know if he would be in the right system, but Christian Kirk I thought was going to be the odd man out in this offense. I thought he would have been number 4 on this team. But I agree with Evan. You're playing Christian Kirk in DFS, but I also like Rondale Moore. I think out of those 4, I think he could be one of those, yard after catch kind of guys. And I think if they do go up big, I think they could start resting the veterans, which would mean Rondell and Kirk can get more play.
Nice. So we like Arizona this week for sure. Quick chat trade question here before we get to our last 3 cheats before our cheat of the week. This is from Scooby Taylor. Do I trade away Antonio Gibson and Cup for Aaron Jones and Marquis Brown in PPR? We're all shaking our heads. I think we probably all agree here. I'm not. I like the Gibson Cup side of that.
Yes.
You guys also on board with that?
I know there's injury concern with Gibson a little bit, but to me, when you have Cup as big as he's doing this year, and I don't think it's going to drop off that much. If he drops off, it's not going to be out of the top 5 or 10. And if Gibson can hold his end of the bargain, Marquise Brown's, I believe, value is going to drop a little bit with Bateman already having the target share he has, and that's in 1 game.
Mm-hmm.
And if him and Jackson can get their rapport, that's only going to go up. We already see Dylan eating into a little bit of the snap share with Aaron Jones, which I'm a little bit worried about. Not a lot, but a little bit. To me, this is Gibson and Cup, hands down.
I think I'm with you. Yeah, it's close. It's not like crazy, but yeah, I like Gibson as long as he can stay healthy. I really like Cup, obviously, more than Browns. I think that gap's a little bit more for me for the consistency, and then Gibson, Jones are close. Yeah, Evan, you're right there.
I'm with you. I'm with you guys. You guys touched on everything. I'm definitely, like you said, it's not too far away, but it's Cup is what tilts this for me.
Yeah, Cup, he's been fantastic, and I love that offense too. So I like there's certain offenses you just want guys. You want to have guys from that team. So let's get on to our next one, though. We'll throw it to you, Evan, for number 7.
All right, so number 7, I'm going to go to my Cowboys. I think it may be time to move on from Dalton Schultz. I know he's been amazing. He's been an absolute amazing find for
your guy. It's on your team, man.
I know, man. He's been an amazing find for fantasy managers, especially if you missed out on one of those top tier tight ends. So obviously you're tempted to hang on to him, but I think you at least got to consider dangling him out there in your league. Obviously to those league mates who are really hurting for a tight end. I mean, who isn't at this point? But yeah, I mean, see what they're willing to give you in return, because the Cowboys, as I'm reading on the site earlier, we're hopeful that we get Michael Gallup back. And we're hopeful that he, can start practicing as soon as this week. So I think Schultz production could see a significant decline or, come to a screeching halt altogether. This past week, he still dominated Blake Jarwin in terms of snap percentage and routes run, but he ended the day 5th on the team in targets, and I think it's possible that becomes the norm with Gallup back. Nothing's a sure thing, obviously, but I do think it's just something to think about, something to consider, and if you're going to do it, if you were going to do that, I think now is the time. It's better to do it now while he still carries high value, because if you wait until Gallup steps back on the field, I know Schultz snaps and routes run at that point are going to take a hit. There's no question in my mind they are going to take a hit. And if you wait until that point, well, then, you just lost a ton of trade value and somebody that you most likely got off the waiver wire. And at that point, he's just a downgrade to your team at a position that everyone is struggling at. And, then you have a downgrade on your roster with not many options to pivot to out there. So I would go try to trade him while he has high value and maybe upgrade at the position right now.
What would be an upgrade for you? Which guys? I'm trying to look at tight end list. I'm like, realistically, I'm looking at injured. I'm like Gronk or Knox was kind of making like sense for me in the range. Would you do that?
I'm thinking Knox. I've already made that deal. So I really like Knox going forward. Especially we've seen, Diggs. Better days are ahead for Diggs, but he's not playing lights out like he was last year. And Knox has looked really good. So Knox is definitely a trade I have already made and would make if I had Schultz for sure. And you may be able to get one of these, lower end running backs. It depends on what your roster looks like. But But I just think that if you wait until Gallup comes back, I know for sure his snap percentage is going to take a hit. His routes runner are going to take a hit. And at that point, his value just dips. So I'm looking to just sell him while he still has high value.
All right. I've got a question in here from Gerson. Who has a bigger revenge game this week? DeAndre Hopkins or Matt Stafford?
Gerson, I will get to this later.
Oh, nice. Oh, so we a little teaser here. So we already touched on DeAndre Hopkins. He has a revenge game. I don't know. I feel like it could get spread out there, but it'll be interesting. You got to throw Jared Goff in here too, though, right? It's a revenge game for him too. So we'll tease that for Mike later, but definitely some revenge games on the table this week for sure. Let's run through to. We are up to number 8. Let's jump to that, Mike. This is the 8th topic of the week. What do you got?
All right. So Evan just talked about his team, and I am about to talk about mine. And I am worried about CEH.
Hot garbage? Or no?
Not hot garbage, not dumpster fire. Evan alluded a little bit to it earlier, but I am going to go more into detail. With the way Williams performed last week, I have a feeling this is going to be the norm when he comes back healthy, depending on when he comes back healthy. I mean, Darrell Williams had 75.76 opportunity share last week. For the whole season overall, CEH was at 59. So I understand that McKinnon isn't, a full set number 2 like Darrell Williams. I get that. But here's the key thing that scares the living daylights out of me. He had 21 carries last week, 4th in the league. Williams. He had more carries than CEH has had all year, and I think only 2 games last year he had one or two more games last year. He had more carries than Darrell had this year. He had 2 touchdowns. The thing is, CEH 40% red zone opportunities this season. Darrell Williams last week had 100%. I understand CEH wasn't in the lineup, but CEH should have more than 40% of the red zone opportunities for running back. I just believe that this is going to be the norm. And he had 3 catches. He had 3 catches on 4 targets last week too, which is something that CEH was supposed to be the dude at, was catching out of the backfield. I just have a feeling that this is going to be a lot more of a 50-50 split. And if you own CEH, which I have in like 1 or 2, not a lot of shares, I'm worried. I know you're not going to be able to sell high right now because he's injured, but temper your expectations and expect this to be a split. And I think this could carry on more into next year. I think this is the future of CEH.
So you are out on CEH, Mike.
I am officially
Chiefs
out.
Fan, Mike.
I am officially out on CEH as a fantasy stud.
Oh, man. It was trending that way prior to the injury. Darrell Williams snap shares were going up. CEHs were going down, even though he got a couple 100-yard games there. I kind of with you. I think he's more of a mid RB2. That's kind of where I value him in Dynasty. Maybe even, it depends, somewhere in the mix there, mid to back RB2. Evan, your thoughts here? Darrell Williams, solid plug-in here, right in the mix, and CEH going forward.
Yeah, I think he's a workhorse, man, until CEH comes back, and he showed it last week. He was on the field playing. He played 59 snaps. That was 10 more snaps than CEH had the whole year when he was healthy. I have him as a top 10 back this week against Tennessee. He's only 5,800 on DraftKings. Another excellent value. I'm going to be playing him everywhere I can.
Do you like Monty better? You think that's a realistic thing? You guys Montgomery fans?
Yeah, I'm a big Montgomery fan.
So you would do you think a CEH and a plus for Montgomery type of thing?
Yes, sir.
Montgomery at least showed that he gets the volume, so which is nice. But
I would do in Dynasty. I would do CEH in a second
for Montgomery. I like Montgomery rising up there. Guy much maligned, but certainly showed until the injury this year. Although Herbert's in the mix there now, maybe that guy earns a little bit more too. But it'll be interesting there. But yeah, the thing with CEH is he's never fully gotten the volume there that you were expecting out, especially in the passing game, which was kind of the most disappointing part because that was kind of supposed to be his bread and butter. And that's such a, valuable play for fantasy. And it's just never kind of clicked there.
Well, and I know people have told me not to worry about it last year because I was screaming and hollering about it, worrying me last year, watching him play, every play being a Chiefs fan. But that red zone opportunities really scares me as well.
Yeah, and that too. I mean, he got all of his red zone opportunities like the first game he ever played. He had like 6, and he got stoned on like all of them. It's like his first game, and it's, I don't know. And since then, they've been few and far between how many opportunities he's gotten. So let's roll it along here to number 9. This is my last topic before our cheats of the week. I wanted to kind of touch on different positions this week because it's the Bye-pocalypse. What are some deeper plays that you could play? And this is a guy that I didn't think we would ever be talking about again in fantasy. I had this guy on numerous dynasty teams thinking he was a thing a couple of years ago. Didn't come to be. Ricky Seals-Jones, RSJ. The artist formerly known as RSJ, he is on the Washington football team, and he's producing a little bit at a. We all love the tight end position, lots of depth there. And when you're in a bye week, a Bye-pocalypse, and there's people injured, you start to reach for some guys. And I think he's actually a legit play this week because he's getting used there on the Washington football team. Just take a look at Ricky Seals-Jones. Just take a look at his snap share last 2 weeks. Yeah. He's basically playing almost 100% of the snaps.
Literally.
He's not coming off the field. Yeah. He played 100% of the snaps last week. 11th in tight end scoring over the last 2 weeks. And Green Bay's fine team. Like they give up a reasonable amount of points to the tight end. It's a game they're probably going to have to throw to stay into that game. But the fact that he is on the field that much and he's been that involved, 17.8% target share the last 2 weeks. That's a team that just seems to. Logan Thomas was always involved, and Logan Thomas is fine. He's not necessarily like an unbelievable tight end. It's just they tend to target the tight end there on that team in that Ron Rivera system. I think this guy is at least going to be involved. I mean, there's risk, but a person that's on the field that much and seems to be involved that much is a solid play in this tight end landscape. So for a guy that I liked a couple of years ago and when he was on Arizona to kind of pop up again here, I think he's an interesting play this week and until Logan Thomas comes back. Guys, quick thoughts on Ricky Seals-Jones this week. You playing him anywhere?
Oh yeah, I'll be honest. I 100% agree with you on all of it. And to me, it's proving that it's because of the system and not the player. Some people thought Logan Thomas was last year. They just love the tight end in that system, and it's a plug and play.
Nice. Yep. Evan, any last thoughts there?
They should have to throw a lot. I think he's a top 10 play, and I'm going to be playing him in DraftKings once again at 3,700. I think it's good value.
Love it. Ricky Seals-Jones. Back. He is back. Very excited. Let's get to our final segment of the week. This is the cheat of the week, where we give you some of our favorite stats or bets or other things that to round out the week. We're going to kick this off with you, Evan. What is your cheat of the week?
Of course, we're right back to the betting front.
Yeah.
I mean, we're 5-1 so far on these underdog bets, so we're rolling, man. So until we start to hit that cold streak, I'm going to keep on giving them out. We cashed another one last week with the Raiders. So if anyone happens to be following along, we're killing it right now. My money line underdog this week is going to be the Dolphins to beat the Falcons. I know everyone is concerned with them. They opted not to take the bye. After London, they give teams the option. The Dolphins opted not to. So everyone is concerned with that they're going to, be super jet lagged and that's going to affect their play and so forth. Especially after coming off, that tough loss against the Jags. But for me, what it comes down to is Tua's back. He looked really, really good early on in that Jags game. It kind of fell off towards the end there. But just because the Dolphins are coming off of the jet lag, Tua's had plenty of time to rest. Okay, he's ready to go. So I think he's going to be fine with that whole jet lag theory. Despite the loss last week, Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki thrived, man. They look to be loving having Tua back under center. So I think they should continue to eat against the Falcons defense like we talked about earlier. The Falcons D is giving up more points per game than every NFL team but the Washington football team. So yeah, I'm buying in on Miami as my money line underdog play of the week. Real quick, I also have a really strong case for the Bengals to beat the Ravens on the money line. I absolutely love them at +6. I've even seen it at 6.5 on the market in certain places.
I took it at 6.5.
Yeah,
I would take it at 6.5.
But I have a strong case for the money line as well. I'm not going to go into it. We got to get to your guys' cheats of the week as well. But yeah, if you do want to hear my thoughts on it, follow me on Twitter, DM me. We'll talk shop.
Nice. Parlay that, string those two together. Make it a little bit juicier, right?
There we go.
No, I think the Dolphins definitely have a shot in that game this week. Mike, let's get to your cheat of the week.
Revenge game. 2 big revenge games this week. You got Arizona against Houston. You got DeAndre Hopkins. You got J.J. Watt. And I am going to bring up David Johnson just because I have a feeling he's going to ask for The Rock to prove that he shouldn't have been traded like that. I mean, it was a bad trade on all sides of it. We all know that. But the other big one, we got the Rams. You got Stafford against Goff. I think Goff is going to want to prove that, that he wasn't useless and they shouldn't have got rid of him. But the one stat that I saw this week that really got me was he has not won a game in his career without Sean McVay as his head coach. Because even when Jeff Fisher was his head coach, he didn't even win a freaking game. So is it Jared Goff or is it Sean McVay? I think Goff is going to have a decent revenge game, but I think Matthew Stafford and DeAndre Hopkins are going to have the biggest revenge games. But watch out. TJ Watt, 2 sacks.
TJ Watt or JJ Watt?
JJ Watt, 2 sacks.
And TJ Watt on bye.
Well.
JJ Watt to go. Yeah, who has the most on the line to me? I saw a good tweet. I don't know who it was from, but Goff has the most to prove, right? Especially
after what Campbell said last week post game, Jared Goff has the most to prove.
But yeah, his coach doesn't like him. The opposing team's coach doesn't like him. There's no respect for Jared.
Well, here's a question: if you get to the end of the season and Detroit's done, like say they're 2-10 or even worse, do you bring in David Blau just to make sure you don't ruin having a top pick?
At that point, don't you think Jared Goff's pretty good at getting you to that top pick? I don't know, David Blau probably guarantees it, I guess. But I thought you were going to see what you have in David Blau. I've seen David Blau play. I
saw someone actually put that out on Twitter. I actually saw that as a poll.
Dan Campbell doesn't strike me as that type of head coach.
No, that's what I said. That's why I voted no.
Yeah, I saw David Blau. I watched Rondell. Go watch Rondell Moore tape in college. You'll see yourself some David Blau. He's great. Yeah, Purdue legend. Yes, David Blau. It's fantastic. Yeah, I love that. There are some deep. I didn't even think of how deep that Arizona Houston game really went. Man, there are a lot of layers there. Lots of different guys. So that is going to be a surprisingly fun game for, Houston
for a 17-point spread game.
Yeah, sure. Let's get to mine. This is my cheat of the week this week. My magic number this week is 5.5. That would be how many times Justin Fields been sacked per attempt this year. That is the number. He's been sacked 18 times this year in his starts. He hasn't started all the games because they obviously had Andy Dalton there, but he has taken 18 sacks on 99 attempts this year. So that, which is not very good. However, we are in obviously a week where you're maybe reaching a little bit, especially in Superflex for quarterbacks. So Justin Fields is definitely on the radar. I'm actually starting him in a league, mostly because it's risk reward with Justin Fields this week. The risk, what you've seen so far, that team doesn't throw the ball. really one of the lowest attempts in the league, pass attempts, one of the lowest volume of throwing in the league. However, you cannot run on that Bucs team. You're going to have to score on that Bucs team. We know the Buccaneers are going to put up points at Brady, and you're going to have to throw. But the risk here really is that front seven is the key to that defense. Their secondary is suspect all over the place on the Buccaneers. However, they can get to the quarterback. We saw Jalen Hurts running for his life last week. My fear is that you get out there and there are numerous sacks, and it's just, can Justin Fields survive the game? The reward is that he's been playing better lately, a little bit better. There's been signs of life in that offense. Glimmers. I'm not saying that they've looked unbelievable, but there have been moments, especially last week, a couple of good drives there against the Packers where Fields has put it together a little bit. My hope this week, if you're playing the risk-reward game with him, is that there's the reward of they get into a little bit of a shootout. They can exploit that secondary. If that front can just hold up a little bit to give him some time, I think this could be a game where they could break out a little bit. But I will caution it with that risk of just if he's getting sacked, which has happened a lot this year. But Fields is in that mix of quarterbacks you're going to have to be thinking about with Tua, Matt Ryan, Daniel Jones, Jameis Winston, guys in that area of the rankings. Like, you're probably going to have to be thinking about one of these guys to play. I think he's not as safe as like a Matt Ryan or Tua this week, but I think he does offer kind of a ceiling that is interesting, just because if they could put it together for 1 week against the defense that they're going to have to score but against to stay in that game, I think he could be interesting if he can survive. Any last thoughts there quickly on that game and Justin Fields? Do you any hope there? Definitely a risk reward play.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think, like you said, he's not going to have any choice but to throw a ton. So hopefully we can get, a decent game for fantasy purposes out of him. I definitely think the Bears are hoping that Damian Williams clears this COVID protocol, because I think he's a better fit for this game script than Khalil Herbert will be.
Yeah, because you think you got to throw Herbert.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much mix. He caught 2 passes last week. So, Mike, any thoughts there on Justin Fields?
I'm not going to comment on Fields. I want you to throw up Gerson's comment.
Oh, I just saw that.
I'll go to this one. They're going to give up. I don't know how many Gerson. I know you're a Raiders fan, so I know me and you have a rivalry. I don't know how many points we're going to score, but I will say this: Derrick Henry 175-2. It's going to be a high-scoring game. Tannehill's going to have a good game for once in a few weeks. And watch out for freaking Julio and AJB. I think it's probably going to be like 35-30.
Yeah, this is how many points does the dumpster fire of a Chiefs defense allow this week? So you're definitely 30 plus versus the versus 30. The Titans. So yeah, yes. Derrick Henry. Yeah, this is the game where Tannehill turns it around too. So yeah, Tannehill probably a more interesting play than Justin Fields as well. But it seems like you can kind of get off the schneid a bit versus that Chiefs defense. So
thanks, Josh. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, Henry usually scores like 2 or 3, so only 2. I think 4 probably that's the line, right, for Henry.
Yeah,
the guy's unreal, man.
I would not doubt if it's 4.
Yeah, maybe they just pull him at that point. They're up by too much. That's probably your only hope, I guess. The Titans, the underdog. You could a good underdog bet this week. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm on the Chiefs, man. I'm on the Chiefs. Yeah, I'm on the Chiefs.
Yeah. Well, we will see how that game goes next week when we'll comment it and see if the Chiefs defense can turn it around and maybe keep the Titans out of the end zone and win that game. But that about wraps it up for our top 10 things you need to know heading into this week 7. Like we said, the Bye-pocalypse. Hope you can survive it out there and you can actually fill out a roster and maybe win your week this week. But once again, we're going to send it around the horn here quick. Give us where we can find you and what you've been working on. Evan, where can we find you?
You can always find me on Twitter at EV_RITT3 at EV_Rit3. All my work is over at goingfor2.com. Obviously, you can find us over here on the Fantasy Cheat Sheet every Friday evening at 8:30. And then definitely tune in to the Sunday morning show at 11 a.m. With me, Gladys, Eric, and Gerson. Me and G talk a lot of DFS. We talk start sit. We'll have actives, inactives. It's just a good time before, Sunday morning before you got a set lineup. So come check us out. I'll have a betting article out sometime tomorrow as well. So go check out that, where I'll give you my favorite over-unders for the week. I'll give you little parlays I like, some prop bets and so forth. So definitely check that as well over at goingfor2.com. Other than that, I will see you guys next week. One more comment. I think with Mike doing the graphics now, we got to get the t-shirts made with the dumpster fire logo. You know what I mean? We got to coin that.
Yeah. Trademark that.
Yeah.
Obviously. Make some money. Get on that, Mike.
I'll do a dumpster fire graphic this week.
There we go.
Where can we find you, Mike? Give us your Twitter again.
All right. So on Twitter, you can find me at Drop the Mike FF. Hit me up in the DMs. I'm always willing to help, answer questions. Like Evan just said, I'm trying my hand at some graphics. I'm getting better. I'm not great. But if anyone has an idea of a player or wants something, hit me up and I'll do what I can do.
Nice. I love it. And yes, we will get that hot garbage dumpster fire t-shirts. We're going to get them pressed soon, get them out there. It's going to be all the rage.
Thanks, Kyle.
You can find me at JC_DFF. As always, I write for Going for Two as well. Dynasty articles there. Catch me and my brothers if you like me talking to them on chat here. You could also hear us talk together in a room at the Brothers of Dynasty show that we do Tuesdays live at Brothers of Dynasty there. So you can check us out there. Check out all the things that you said that we all brought up here, especially that Sunday show with Evan. Honestly, the hot gambling advice here. Evan's crushing it with these bets, so get more advice from Evan for sure on the gambling front. But as always, thanks for joining us here. For Mike, for Evan, I am Jay. We will see you next week. Survive week 7, and hopefully we'll see you next week.